Every action fan knows the feeling. You watch a trailer packed with pulse-pounding shots, fiery stunt work, explosive gunfights, intense close-quarters combat, and instantly lock onto one moment that looks too unforgettable to miss. You wait for it throughout the entire movie. And then you reach the credits, realizing that the scene never appeared at all. No hint of it. No alternate angle. Not even a shortened version. It simply doesn't exist in the film you just watched. This strange phenomenon isn't an accident. Throughout the 80 seconds and 90 seconds, studios often treated trailers as their own creative playground, piecing them together from early cuts, unfinished footage, test sequences, or scenes that were later cut due to censorship, budgets, or last-minute rewrites. In some cases, a scene was shot only because the marketing department needed a flashy image for promotion. In others, the director delivered a darker or more violent cut that was later sliced apart. Yet, the trailer still held pieces of that lost version. Tonight, we're uncovering those hidden moments, action scenes that lived briefly in promotional material before being erased from the movie itself. These aren't simple deleted scenes, they're fragments of alternate realities, echoes of bolder, bloodier, or more ambitious films that audiences never got to experience. Fans still debate them, freeze-frame them, and wonder what those missing beats would have meant for the story. So settle in, because we're revisiting 15 films where the trailer promised something the final cut never delivered, scenes that burn themselves into memory even though they never truly existed on screen. Welcome to Action Undone, where we shine a light on the action moments Hollywood left behind. Fact 1. The Specialist, 1994. The promotional trailer for The Specialist showcases a massive nighttime detonation, an entire city block igniting in a fiery cascade as Ray Quick walks away in silhouette. It's dramatic, polished, and visually superior to most of the explosions in the finished movie. Yet viewers quickly noticed that this spectacular moment is nowhere in the final cut. No sequence in the film matches the angle, the intensity, or the setting shown in the marketing. This isn't a case of a normal deleted scene. The explosion was reportedly filmed during early effects tests, long before principal photography settled into its final shape. The production team commissioned a full-scale demolition to evaluate how Stallone's character could be framed against large, practical blasts. Directors and effects coordinators later shifted the story's emphasis toward smaller, more surgical explosions tied closely to the emotional beats of the narrative. The test explosion no longer fit the tone and was removed from the script before the main shoot ever concluded. But MGM wasn't willing to let such an impressive shot go unused. The trailer editors chose it as a centerpiece, knowing it would sell the film's high-stakes tone and Stallone's stoic presence. Audiences entered theaters expecting a huge late-film blowout, only to realize the promised spectacle never arrived. To this day, the missing explosion remains one of the most talked-about curiosities in Stallone's filmography, an early, experimental effects moment preserved only in promotional material. Fact 2. Sudden Death, 1995. One of the standout shots in the Sudden Death trailer features Jean-Claude Van Damme locked in a savage bathroom brawl, smashed tiles, broken mirrors, and a desperate exchange of heavy strikes under harsh fluorescent lighting. The moment is visceral, messy, and perfectly suited to the film's high-pressure setting. But when audiences sat through the movie, they discovered that the entire bathroom fight never appears. Not even an abbreviated version survives. The missing confrontation traces back to an earlier structure in the script. In initial drafts, Darren McCord was supposed to face a series of escalating close-quarters encounters during his search for his daughter. The bathroom fight served as a turning point, revealing just how far he was willing to push himself to outmaneuver the terrorists. When editors tightened the pacing, the sequence was deemed a distraction from the ongoing arena tension. Producers also felt that the brutality pushed the film too far into rated territory, at a time when they were aiming for a wider audience. By the time the studio removed the fight from the final cut, the marketing team had already built the trailer around several of Van Damme's most impressive action beats, including the bathroom ambush. Since the footage was dynamic and showcased his athleticism, they kept it. As a result, fans expecting an intense, claustrophobic duel left the theater puzzled. The bathroom fight remains one of Van Damme's most famous ghost scenes, publicly teased, but never actually released. Fact 3. Street Night, 1993. In the trailer for Street Night, Jeff Speakman is seen ramming a gang member's vehicle in a brutal, head-on collision, metal twisting inward, sparks flying, and the impact echoing like a breaking bone. The imagery suggests a darker, more feral version of the film, one driven by raw vengeance. Yet, when viewers watched the movie, the expected moment never surfaced. The chase exists, but the devastating collision is inexplicably absent. This missing impact has roots in Cannon Films' financial uncertainty during the film's production. Early in the shoot, the team captured only partial coverage of the stunt, the initial acceleration, the crash itself, and a close-up of Speakman preparing for the hit. What they lacked were the additional angles, inserts, and continuity shots needed to build a complete sequence. When the budget tightened, producers chose not to finish the crash scene, shifting resources to other parts of the film. Even unfinished, the stunt footage looked powerful. Marketing teams, desperate to position Speakman as Cannon's next major action star, incorporated the raw material directly into the trailer. It promised a vicious edge that the final film, edited for pacing and budget, could never match. In the end, the trailer preserved a moment meant to symbolize Speakman's intensity, even though the movie itself never delivered it. The missing collision stands as one of the last remnants of Cannon's collapsing era of gritty, low-budget action cinema. Fact 4. Sniper, 1993. The trailer for Sniper contains a striking shot of Tom Berenger stalking through a moonlit jungle, rifle raised as he melts into the shadows. The atmosphere is eerie, thick humidity, drifting fog, and a sense of predator versus prey calm. But curiously, this exact nighttime stalk never appears in the finished movie. The final cut includes various reconnaissance scenes, yet none match the composition or mood presented in the trailer. This discrepancy traces back to Sniper's earliest filming days. Production initially experimented with a darker visual style, framing Beckett's missions as psychological endurance rather than conventional military action. Several nighttime setups were filmed with a different lighting team, aiming for a dreamlike, tense aesthetic. Once principal photography progressed, however, the director shifted to a more grounded look, favoring daylight clarity over atmospheric nighttime sequences. As the story tightened, the nighttime stalk fell victim to tonal revisions. It was removed long before the final edit was assembled, but the marketing team still had access to the unused dailies. They loved the shot's haunting feel and used it to emphasize the film's sniper-focused suspense. Fans have since wondered whether an earlier, moodier version of Sniper once existed. But today, the lone surviving trace of that abandoned vision is the few seconds preserved in the original trailer, an echo of a more shadowy approach the film never fully explored. Fact 5. Navy SEALs, 1990. Action enthusiasts who revisited the Navy SEALs trailer will instantly recall a gritty assault sequence. The team breaching a dim industrial structure with gunfire illuminating the darkness. Quick glimpses show Charlie Sheen sliding into position, Michael Biehn leading a tactical advance, and the squad maneuvering through tight corridors. Yet none of those shots appear in the theatrical release. The explanation lies in a discarded opening act. Initially, the film included a grim introductory mission intended to portray the harsh consequences of a failed operation. This prologue was designed to show the team's internal pressure and set up a more emotionally heavy narrative. But test audiences found the sequence too bleak, prompting the studio to reorient the movie toward a more energetic, patriotic tone. Though removed from the narrative, early footage had already been handed over to the marketing department. The assault montage looked cinematic and aligned perfectly with the film's branding: elite operators, moving with precision and firepower, so the trailer editors kept it intact. Rumors persist that the full prologue was not only shot, but assembled into a near-finished scene. To this day, however, it remains unseen, leaving only the trailer as evidence of a more somber version of Navy SEALs that never reached screens. Fact 6. Hard Target, 1993. In the marketing for Hard Target, one of the standout moments shows Jean-Claude Van Damme leaping across rooftops, while gunmen unload on him from multiple angles. It's a classic John Woo visual grace, violence, and slow-motion danger blended into one fluid image. Yet, when the film was released, the rooftop chase, as depicted in the trailer, was nowhere to be found. The missing footage is tied directly to the intense MPAA battles surrounding the film. Woo's original assembly was notoriously violent, filled with extended shootouts and stylized brutality. The rooftop pursuit was among the action beats, flagged for removal due to excessive gunplay and a lengthy fall sequence the board refused to approve. Universal demanded heavy edits, forcing Woo to trim or eliminate several key stunts, including the rooftop leap. However, the marketing team had access to Woo's early cut before the censorship-driven revisions were made. They selected the rooftop shot for the trailer because it perfectly captured Van Damme's athleticism and Woo's operatic action language. Fans expecting a grand, sweeping rooftop confrontation discovered only fragments of what once existed. The full sequence has never been officially restored, leaving the trailer as the only surviving window into a lost moment from Woo's uncompromised vision. Fact 7. The Glimmer Man, 1996. The trailer for The Glimmer Man hints at a far moodier film than the one audiences ultimately received. One of the most memorable shots shows Steven Seagal moving silently through a shabby apartment, lit only by scattered lamps and dying bulbs. He unsheathes a knife, gliding past torn curtains and overturned furniture as a silhouette lurks ahead. The moment is tense, atmospheric, and closer to a psychological thriller than a buddy cop action movie. But when viewers watched the final cut, that entire apartment sequence was gone. This lost scene came from an earlier narrative thread that leaned heavily into horror-like suspense. The original script emphasized Jack Cole's mysterious past and the eerie nature of the serial killer he was. Tracking. Several solo investigative moments were filmed, quiet, unsettling scenes meant to build dread rather than deliver traditional action beats. When Warner Brothers retooled the movie to play more like a mismatched partners action comedy, those darker scenes were deemed tonally incompatible. Still, the marketing team had access to early production reels and gravitated toward the haunting apartment stock. It looked dramatic, visually distinctive, and suggested a sharper, edgier story. In the end, the trailer preserved a version of The Glimmer Man that audiences never saw, a darker film buried beneath studio rebranding. Fact 8. Rapid Fire, 1992. In the Rapid Fire trailer, Brandon Lee bursts through a warehouse window under a hail of bullets, hitting the ground in a seamless roll before launching a crisp counterattack. The stunt is bold and acrobatic, perfectly showcasing Lee's blend of martial arts and physical charisma, but the finished movie contains no such window crash, no supporting choreography, and no moment that matches what the trailer promises. This footage was part of an earlier version of the warehouse sequence. Conceived before late-stage rewrites shifted the story toward tighter, more confined environments. The window stunt was meant to serve as Jake Lowe's first major showcase of agility, demonstrating his instinctive ability to evade danger. However, production complications, namely incomplete stunt coverage and issues with breakaway glass, left editors struggling to piece together a clean sequence. Rather than invest in reshoots, the filmmakers cut the moment entirely. Nevertheless, the trailer editors, who had already pulled from early footage, kept the visually striking shot because it immediately communicated Lee's star power. The missing stunt is now one of Brandon Lee's most discussed phantom moments. A brief flash of what might have been had the original warehouse sequence been fully realized. Fact 9. Fire Down Below, 1997. One of the boldest images in the Fire Down Below trailer is a massive forest explosion, tearing through the trees, while Steven Seagal dives behind cover. The shot feels like the setup to a sweeping ambush scene, fiery debris, roaring shockwaves, and a sense of real danger. Yet none of this appears in the completed film. Not a frame of the explosion is carried over. This missing sequence was tied to an earlier storyline involving illegal blasting operations deep in the Appalachian woods. The original script leaned more heavily on environmental sabotage, prompting the production to stage a large practical explosion to anchor the subplot. When concerns arose regarding the depiction of ecological destruction, and after budget recalculations, Warner Brothers softened the narrative, removing several large-scale effects, shots that no longer matched the toned-down story. But by then, the marketing department had already selected the dramatic explosion for the trailer. It was eye-catching, expensive-looking, and created the impression of a wide-reaching conspiracy, elements producers ultimately dialed back. As a result, the trailer preserved a spectacular practical effect that audiences never saw. The forest blast survives only in that brief promotional glimpse, symbolizing the more ambitious version of Fire Down Below that was abandoned mid-production. Fact 10. Cobra 1986. The trailer for Cobra flashes a stylish, smoky alley sequence where Marion Cobretti advances toward an unseen threat. Neon lights reflecting off his iconic sunglasses as he fires into the darkness. It's a gritty, atmospheric moment that suggests a more menacing version of the film. But fans who revisit the movie will quickly notice that this alley confrontation never happens. The setting doesn't appear, the lighting style is missing, and the entire shootout is absent from the theatrical narrative. This moment comes from a rougher, more violent early cut of Cobra, one that was drastically edited to avoid an X rating. Before studio intervention, the film reportedly contained extended stalking sequences and slower, tension-driven confrontations, highlighting the cult's omnipresence. The alley ambush was meant to establish how deeply Cobretti was being hunted, offering a more methodical approach than the fast-cut action scenes that remain. But Warner Brothers wanted a streamlined, fast-paced thriller, so entire scenes vanished during the final edit. The marketing department, however, had already been given raw footage pulled from the workprint. The alley moment looked iconic. Stallone framed like a modern gunslinger, so they kept it as a trailer highlight. Because the trimmed materials were never archived, the alley confrontation is believed to be lost entirely. All that remains is a brief, stylish fragment from the trailer, hinting at a darker and more atmospheric cut of Cobra that audiences never got to see. Fact 11. Universal Soldier: The Return 1999. In the trailer for Universal Soldier: The Return, a standout moment shows Jean-Claude Van Damme sprinting along a metal catwalk as explosions erupt behind him, forcing him to twist through a collapsing railing. It's high energy, dangerous, and perfectly suited to a late 90-second sci-fi action film. Yet the final movie contains no such stunt. The catwalk, the explosions, and the dramatic dive are nowhere to be found. The missing action beat was originally part of a more grounded tactical sequence that appeared in early drafts. This version of the story emphasized Luke Devereaux's vulnerability as he navigated a facility crawling with hostile unisols. The catwalk escape was intended to serve as one of the film's major mid-act highlights. But after test screenings, producers pushed for a shorter, more energetic structure. The catwalk sequence required extra effects work and reshoots expenses the studio no longer wanted to cover. Despite being cut from the narrative, the footage had already been passed to the marketing department. Given its visual punch, the editors included it in the promotional material to boost excitement and showcase Van Damme's physicality. The missing catwalk dive has since become one of the film's most talked about curiosities, an explosive moment teased to audiences, but forever absent from the actual movie. Fact 12. Red Heat 1988. The Red Heat trailer features a brief yet intense motel firefight, where Arnold Schwarzenegger trades gunfire behind a parked car, then charges forward in a powerful close-quarters takedown. The lighting, the staging, and the choreography all suggest a darker, street-level action tone. But when viewers revisit the film, they realize the entire motel sequence is missing. The location, the ambush, and the forward assault are completely absent from the finished story. Originally, director Walter Hill envisioned Red Heat as a harder, more serious crime drama, with an emphasis on gritty confrontations across Chicago's underbelly. The motel raid was one of several scenes filmed to support this tone. However, studio executives later steered the movie toward a lighter buddy cop structure to emphasize the chemistry between Schwarzenegger and James Belushi. As a result, darker or more grounded action sequences, including the motel shootout, were removed. The marketing team, working from early production dailies, used the motel footage anyway. It looked commanding, aggressive, and perfectly in line with what audiences expected from Schwarzenegger in the late 80 seconds. This has led fans to believe a heavier, more serious cut of Red Heat once existed. But to date, no extended version has ever surfaced. The trailer remains the only surviving evidence of a more violent and noir-influenced vision that was stripped away during editing. Fact 13. Showdown in Little Tokyo, 1991. The trailer for Showdown in Little Tokyo flashes a razor-sharp moment where Dolph Lundgren strips a katana from a Yakuza enforcer's grip with a swift, perfectly timed disarm. The room is drenched in neon light, smoke drifting behind him as the blade twists out of the attacker's hand. It's clean, stylish, and instantly memorable. Precisely the kind of martial arts highlight fans expected from Lundgren in his prime. Yet, when they watch the actual film, the move never appeared. The scene's location shows up, the henchmen show up, but the signature disarm does not. This beat belonged to a more elaborate fight originally choreographed for the film's backroom confrontation before Warner Brothers intervened. The fight was longer, more intricate, and designed to showcase Lundgren's training, mixing traditional Japanese weapon counters with brutal hand-to-hand moves. But because the studio pushed hard to shorten the movie's runtime and strip away anything that risked an NC-17 rating, multiple action beats including the katana disarm were removed entirely. Still, the trailer team had already pulled from early footage, and the disarm was simply too striking to discard. It conveyed the movie's East meets West energy in a single shot. Over the years, fans have searched for the full fight, hoping it would appear in a restored cut or deleted scene reel, but no version has ever surfaced today. The only evidence the disarm was ever filmed lives inside the film's promotional material, a fleeting reminder of the more elaborate fight choreography that was lost. Fact 14. Death Warrant, 1990. In the Death Warrant trailer, audiences see Jean-Claude Van Damme deliver a spinning hook kick during a tense ambush on an upper-level prison walkway. Sparks blast off metal bars, inmates rush forward, and the kick lands with clean, explosive force. It's exactly the type of stunt Van Damme fans would anticipate. But when the movie plays out, the entire sequence, setting, movement, and impact is nowhere to be found. That vanished fight was part of a more ambitious prison combat chain, intended to build momentum toward the film's final act. Early outlines framed Burke as increasingly overwhelmed by threats lurking in every corner of the penitentiary. The walkway attack was initially designed to push him into full survival mode and show the rising danger inside the facility. However, test audiences reacted unexpectedly. The scene made Burke look almost too powerful, too early, undercutting the suspenseful build-up surrounding the villain known as the Sandman. The director chose to keep the tone grittier and less heroic, and the walkway fight, despite being mostly complete, was removed. Marketing, of course, wasn't concerned with tonal preservation. They saw a dynamic spin kick, sparks flying, and a confident Van Damme, an ideal trailer moment, and so it stayed. The missing fight has since become one of Van Damme's most referenced lost stunts, remembered only through a few seconds of trailer footage. Fact 15. Fair Game, 1995. The trailer for Fair Game puts heavy emphasis on an intense nighttime speedboat chase, gunmen firing from a pursuing vessel, debris exploding across the water, and Cindy Crawford diving for safety as William Baldwin struggles to keep control. The sequence looks expensive, slick, and more ambitious than anything in the final theatrical cut. Yet when viewers watched the movie, that entire water-based action set piece was gone without a trace. This missing chase was originally intended to inject scale into the film's action, contrasting the cramped road pursuits with a more cinematic environment. Large portions of the sequence were shot, including stunt boat maneuvers, practical explosions, and several dialogue exchanges meant to advance the plot mid-chase. But as production costs ballooned and the script underwent multiple revisions, the studio scaled back the film dramatically. The speedboat ambush no longer fit the newly simplified structure, and completing the sequence would require expensive reshoots. Rather than abandon the footage completely, the marketing team mined it for the trailer. It looked big, dramatic, and suggested a higher stakes experience, something the final version of Fair Game struggled to deliver. In the end, The promised water chase became one of the defining omissions of mid-90 seconds action marketing, remembered almost exclusively through its brief but flashy trailer fragments. Bonus fact: Hard to Kill 1990. Among all the missing action beats that survived only through promotional material, none has sparked more speculation than the warehouse corridor gunfight from Hard to Kill. In the theatrical trailer, Steven Seagal moves through a dim industrial hallway holding a shotgun at the ready, sparks erupting from overhead pipes as gunfire tears through the metal. He drops behind stacked crates, then emerges in a slow-motion blast that feels like a pivotal turning point. Yet no matter which version of the film you watch, VHS, DVD, international prints, or cable edits, this entire confrontation is absent. What makes this case particularly intriguing is the sheer lack of surviving evidence. Unlike typical deleted scenes that emerge in later releases, this warehouse shootout seems to have disappeared completely. Crew members over the years have hinted that the sequence was tied to an earlier subplot involving Mason Storm, tracking down one of the men connected to his assassination attempt. This transitional action beat was supposed to bridge Storm's recovery phase with the final showdown, offering a glimpse of the controlled aggression that would define the rest of the movie. However, when Warner Brothers restructured the film for tighter pacing, the sequence was dropped entirely. The footage, whether partially edited or only captured in dailies, was never restored or included in any supplemental material. The studio's archival records offer no trace of it, leaving fans to wonder whether it was fully assembled or only partially shot. The trailer remains the sole evidence that the warehouse gunfight ever existed. A single, atmospheric flicker of a version of Hard to Kill that audiences never got to experience, one of Seagal's most enduring ghost scenes. Frozen in promotional memory. You've just explored 15 action films that showcased thrilling moments in their trailers, scenes that grabbed your attention, fueled expectations, and then mysteriously vanished from the final release. Some were casualties of rewrites, some were victims of censorship, and others belonged to cuts we were never meant to see. But now, the question is yours. Which missing scene stayed burned in your memory? And is there a trailer moment you're still waiting to find in a film? Share your thoughts below. Stay with Action Undone, where we continue uncovering the secret histories Hollywood leaves in the shadows.